What do you think are some of the biggest lessons that you've taken away from all that?
Oh wow, big lessons. I'd say. I mean, I've got a bit of an what I call an imposter syndrome in being a businessman, because I think mainly because my family are not business people. You know, my family are teachers, basically. So I think I struggled when I started the business thinking, oh, I've got to act like a businessman now. You know, a bit like somebody in The Apprentice. We were talking about The Apprentice earlier. They all bring their attitude and, they're all tough negotiators and everything. So that's how I thought I had to be in business to begin with. And I was lucky to get some feedback from people early on saying, you shouldn't be like that. You're not going to be successful like that. And that was really difficult to take at the time. But I got better at taking the feedback. And eventually I just said, screw all this, trying to be tough and trying to be a business person. Just be yourself and just try to help people, be kind and just try to help. And since I changed my attitude, the business has been great, much more success. So that's what I was saying earlier. Business for me really is about helping, and not everybody has to be like Donald Trump to be successful in business. So that's just off the top of my head. That's just one thing. Yeah. Okay, James. So you've learnt some VBA. So can you highlight the most important lesson you've learned in VBA so far, or maybe one or two things?
The way I learned was very non-traditional. Again, initially I first started by copying and pasting code because I wanted to do something, and it was just daunting to kind of crack open a VBA book and start learning from step one. And then as I got better, I was able to modify it and then just basically copy and paste multiple codes from different people. For instance, your code, and just basically Frankenstein it into making it work. One of the biggest things that I've learned I should have done a long time ago from day one was the notations. It's so key. Just looking back on it, I have some older code that I wrote a year ago. Looking back on it, I can barely tell what it does. I have to, step into each line to understand exactly how it functions. Aside from the notations, I think the biggest other thing to really get familiar and comfortable with is setting those dimensions. I think that'll really help in expediting a lot of work.
The variables, do you mean?
That's right.
Oh, the variables, yeah, where it's dim counter as integer and stuff. Yeah, absolutely, super powerful. Places to store information, aren't they? How did you hear about VBA for the first time? Because everybody's using Excel, but there's this whole different world that nobody knows about. There's only a click away in the VBA editor. So how did you first get into the VBA editor?
That's a good question. So when I first started working in the office, there was something that was bothering me. That the fact that when I wanted to look for a particular document, I had to look for it, within File Explorer or some cloud storage area, and it was just so tedious to find because perhaps if you only had 100 or 1,000 documents to find, just typing it in File Explorer or wherever, it'd pick it up pretty quickly. But we're talking millions, right? So now it's a little difficult. It's going to take time. Sometimes the computer might even just freeze up because it's just overloaded. It just wouldn't be able to pick out exactly. Yeah. What I tried to do was hyperlink the files to a report that had the documents, and I realized after two or three, like, there's no way, this is not possible with doing it manually. There had to be a better way. With my lean mindset, I just started tackling Google, and eventually led me to finding codes. And I thought this was a programming language. I had to install some other software to get it working, but I was surprised to find out it was within Excel. And yes. Just that's what really kicked it off. And once I was able to get it working to my needs, and the fact that I was able to do something that would have taken literally days, weeks for someone to do, just boom, instantly. It was amazing, and that's what really got me excited about the possibilities about the high-level techniques with Excel and VBA. Aside from VBA, about your high-level skills with VBA and being able to write, whatever you want to do within Excel, what do you find the most valuable?
So outside of VBA?
Right, within Excel.
Okay. Well, the way I would see it, you're either doing modeling or you're doing data analysis in Excel. And modeling is stringing formulae together to create a calculation chain. And data analysis is you have a data set and you're trying to analyze it. I mean, pivot tables, the most powerful thing in Excel. Well, maybe not the most powerful, but the most usable. So I'd say pivot tables, but my little secret weapon is what I call data analysis formulae. In particular, dsum, but formulae like sumifs, countifs. To be honest, I avoid pivot tables in my practice most of the time because I just find that their unpredictability when you refresh them. If you refresh them, you have another value in there, then it's going to put another row at the bottom. I'm trying to deliver something to a client that's pretty much locked down. The format's not going to change. The rows and columns not going to change. So rather than pivot tables, I usually use some what I call data analysis formulae. Yeah. So those formulae I just mentioned, I think they're very underrated. And I'm trying to think of anything else. But to be honest, I just use the basic stuff, but I think I use it quite well. But I'm not using anything more than what I demonstrate in the videos.
Great.
Yeah, and I think that approach works, and you'll notice in the videos that I'm always saying you don't need to get better at the technical stuff. You need to get better at the contextual stuff, which maybe brings us full circle around to what we were talking about at the beginning. But the way to be a better programmer is to get better at explaining the benefits of programming. And the way to be a better programmer is to get better at interacting with your customer, whether that's an internal customer or an external customer. All of those things will increase the impact of your projects, and that's going to make you look like a better programmer. That's going to create more value for you than going deeper and deeper into the technical stuff.
A coder without soft skills or a charismatic person without technical abilities, and which person would have a harder time to close the gap? What do you think about this?
Oh yeah, great question. And I think you know my answer, but yeah, for me, if you offer me somebody with no technical skills but who is a great learner, has a good attitude to learning, and a good communicator, then that person can close the gap with the technical skills. Somebody with technical skills, I'm sure there's lots of people out there who will prove me wrong. And if you've got technical skills, make sure you prove me wrong. Yeah, I'm not pigeonholing you, but I think people with technical skills, they can have a hard time learning those soft skills, a hard time understanding the impact of their soft skills. But often there's no real motivation to, because as a programmer, you can earn a good living, have a kind of status in an organization because you have special skills. So, I'm not preaching to anybody about the direction their career should go in. There's lots of people who are very happy doing programming. But for the people who are doing programming and want to push ahead, I'd say, don't learn another programming language. Go and learn about business strategy. Understand how your projects can support the strategy of the business. Go and learn about business models. How do your projects fit into the business model? All of that stuff is going to allow you to sell your work to senior people.
What's next for you and Tiger Solutions?
Oh, good question. Well, I think it's early days, really early days for Tiger, and the long-term vision, if you like, is to offer an alternative to MBA education. So there's lots of people out there like you, people watching this video, who want business education. I'd like more business education. But what do? If you need business education, if you're lucky, you'll work for a big company, you might have an in-house program, but the quality of that can be variable. If you're extremely lucky, you might have access to an MBA program, but they're extremely expensive and prohibitive for most people. So I just see a big gap there for business education. So where we're going long term is diversifying the offering. So not just spreadsheets, business strategy, business modeling, supply chain, all other topics. And then having a model, probably a subscription model, where people can pay a monthly fee, a modest monthly fee, access lectures, demonstrations, interactive sessions with people like me, and experts in particular fields, and get what you'd want from an MBA, but get it at a price that's reasonable, and get what I call a more authentic experience. So be taught by people who are practicing in the field. I'm interacting with clients every day talking about VBA, and everything I teach is shaped by that. So I think that can be beneficial to people. So I see a big gap there in business education, and I'd like to steer Tiger towards that gap with some kind of subscription model that allows people to access that kind of education.